So, my name's Katie. I'm the founder of the Happy Mind Club. A bit of background information. So, I was a primary school teacher in Senko. I left in 2020, 21. Sorry, just admitting somebody else. So, I left teaching in 2020, 21 when I had my youngest child. So, back then, and this was COVID times, the support for teachers, children with SEND needs, I felt was at breaking point. Fast forward 4 years. My youngest son now, he's nearly 4, he's autistic and non-verbal. We're just going through the EHCP process. And the difference in just 4 years from how much worse support has got for teachers, for children, for parents with SEND needs was the reason behind why I set up the Happy Mind Club. So I offer support and training for teachers on behaviour, SEND needs, mental health, wellbeing, and for teachers themselves as well. We've just launched a new project, which was yesterday, which I'll send the details out to you after this. And we also offer support to parents. So today we're looking at dyslexia. So I have done lots of training with dyslexia. I process into train to be a dyslexia assessor, and I have worked with many dyslexic children and have had some really good success stories from it. So I will try and keep the dyslexia part quite brief, as I imagine everybody who is on the webinar has some experience of dyslexia, which is why you're here, and we'll aim to get through it sort of in about half an hour, 40 minutes, to then give a chance for question and answers. If you want to ask me a question, but you don't feel comfortable asking, obviously, on here, just email me afterwards and I will try and help as I can. So if you can't hear me or see, please just put in the chat box so I know. So the statistics we're going to talk about briefly, how dyslexia presents in children, different forms of dyslexia, what to do if you suspect dyslexia, and practical things that you can do within your classroom. So what actually is dyslexia? The NHS define it as a common learning difficulty that mainly causes problems with reading, writing, and spelling. These are the main symptoms which do present for dyslexia. However, I feel that there's also some other ones to look at, such which we will discuss, but such as processing needs, memory, executive function, which is like being organised and being late for things. And we will go on to discuss those. So it currently affects 10% of the British population. It is hereditary, which I never knew until I started learning more about dyslexia. So if one of your parents is dyslexic, there's a 50% chance you will be too. If both of your parents are dyslexic, there's near on 100% chance that you will be dyslexic too. So any parents that you speak to about dyslexia for their children will often say that they too have had problems with reading, writing, spelling, or are dyslexic. The British Dyslexia Association currently say there's 2 to 3 children in each classroom. This doesn't mean that these children have a really severe range of dyslexia. It could be that they have some slight issues with copying, spelling, or it could be that they are severely dyslexic and do need some support in place with every aspect of the learning throughout the day. So it can present in a number of different ways. As I'd said previously, it isn't just struggling to read and spell. It can include forgetting things easily, processing things at a different speed. If you've ever had a child who you ask a question to, and then they sit and think about their answer and can struggle to answer you, that could potentially be dyslexia, especially if they're struggling with their spelling and reading and writing as well. Slow spoken language, mixing words up, are all signs of dyslexia too. Early intervention is critical. So to support with early reading difficulties, the sooner you find out about them, the better. Usually dyslexia you wouldn't really assess before the age of sort of 7 or 8, purely because in that case, some of the symptoms of dyslexia, such as mirror writing, getting letters the wrong way around, and not knowing different sounds and mixing words up, can be down to gaps in knowledge or need a bit of an extra teaching of phonics and spelling and handwriting. But it can also be a sign of dyslexia. So severe dyslexia you can pick up sort of at the age of 5 and 6. But at that age, I would be looking at it and thinking, and we will talk about the process behind that a bit further on, but I would be thinking, is this something to do with the learning? Let's put some things in place for it before we go on to a dyslexia assessment. The British Dyslexia Association has said support, diagnosis and funding is the worst it's been since funding for dyslexia started, which I'm sure nobody in teaching finds a surprise. Out of 8.7 million school children, 870,000 have dyslexia, but it shows that less than 150,000 have been diagnosed, which is quite a poor diagnosis rate, really. And also, dyslexia coexists with other neurodivergent needs. So it's not unlikely that if a child has dyslexia, that sometimes there can be symptoms of dyspraxia, ADHD, dyscalculia, autism. All of those things can present and be a struggle as well as dyslexia. So these are some of the symptoms of dyslexia. On the left, it's more the more prominent symptoms, and I feel on the right are the ones that are less known to dyslexia. But these are not all of the symptoms. These are just some of them and some of the most common ones. So delayed speech, if a child has a speech delay, it can be a sign of dyslexia. Jumbling upwards, so helicopters, heculopter. If they can't find the correct word for things, or might call something a thingy, or they mix the words up a lot, this can be obviously shown at early years and sort of key stage 1 more. That can be a sign of dyslexia. If there's little or no understanding of rhymes, obviously in early years, key stage 1, you would do a lot of singing, rhyming. If there's no understanding, little interest in it, they can't really get the rhymes, no interest in letters or the alphabet, that can be symptoms of dyslexia. Spelling errors, so mirror letters, letters the wrong way around, numbers too, confused with the orders of words and spelling, struggling to write things down. This, I think, can show later on as well, so key stage 2 and early key stage 3. I've worked with children who can barely write a sentence, but if you speak to them about something and ask them to answer a question, the vocabulary, the meaning behind the words is absolutely amazing, really high level, but they struggle to write it down. Struggling to understand phonemes, copying words. I've worked with a pupil before who actually, she's just done her GCSEs and she got a 7, which is the equivalent of an A in old GCSEs. And she could not copy words down. Her dyslexia presented like that, but her understanding was there. Struggle to organise themselves or follow instructions. So if you have a child that really, really struggles to follow instructions or find things, losing things, slow writing, can have poor handwriting. This isn't always the case. I've seen some children with dyslexia with beautiful handwriting, but they can struggle to even get sort of started in their English lessons. So there's different types. The first one is phonological awareness. So that's working with the sounds in words. So if they struggle rhyming, splitting words into syllables, have poor understanding of syllables and sounds and blending phonemes, that can be a sign of it. Memory and working memory. So as adults and children, mainly you can follow instructions which are sort of 5 to 6 stages long. If a child has working memory needs, it can be difficult to have sort of more than 2 to 3 pieces of information at a time. So if you have a task and you give them 4, 5, 6, 7 steps to it, they will find that difficult. And this is especially with written work. Obviously, we'll talk about strategies further along, but key to that is to breaking things down. Slow processing speeds, I've spoken about that. They may find it longer to process information. Reading a book, completing a writing exercise, just even really thinking about what is being asked of them can take longer for them. Managing time, which is called executive function. So they may find it difficult to manage their time, the order in which they need to complete tasks. They can struggle, children with, I've put on here, independent homework, exam revision, and doing things really independently where they've not been set clear instructions. They may find that difficult. And then lastly, auditory processing. So they can find that they're easily distracted by noise. They can forget what's said to them. we all know anyway that people work differently. Some prefer visual, some prefer to get hands-on, some prefer to listen to instructions. But children who've got an auditory processing need relating to dyslexia will find it really difficult to follow verbal instructions. And if they're told to do something rather than shown, they can find that really, really difficult and they can lose focus doing that. So, what to do if you suspect a child has dyslexia? So, the first thing I would do is to keep a record of this. There's a record page which I've got a couple of slides on, which I'll show you. But what I would do is once I've noticed it on a piece of work, photocopy the piece of work and just keep it. Show it to your Senko. Or if you are the Senko, just keep that on file if you believe that's the first instance. If you notice something else, just note it down with the date and what it was. Just start keeping a record of it. Speak to the Senko for support. Look at interventions that could possibly be put into place. The sooner you start an intervention, the better. Even if it turns out it's not dyslexia and they've just needed some extra support with phonics or writing, reading, it's not going to do any harm. Inform the parents. Like I've said, most parents will usually turn around and say that they've struggled themselves. I've only ever had in my whole career one parent who has point blank refused to accept that their child has dyslexia or could be dyslexic. And this child, unfortunately, had quite severe dyslexia. And what we had to do as a school was support them within school, but it did become difficult. But that's the only one I've ever come across in my whole career. There's a program called Nessie, which I'll talk about, and they've got a brilliant ebook which is free to download. And that goes through dyslexia, the different types. It's almost like a picture book, but for explaining quite briefly to parents and children, it's a really, really good tool. And then assessment. Now, I understand some schools have their own assessments. We used to have an assessment at our own school. Some schools or clusters or trusts have a dyslexia specialist that comes into school to do the assessment, and some don't do any, they just refer it on to the GP. And we'll speak about dyslexia assessment also. So there's an ebook to go with this, which is available on the website. I'll also send all this information afterwards. So this is a symptom tracker. So this is early years. I've got one for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. And this is a table which has different things which could present as dyslexia. I've put on there, obviously, it might not necessarily show dyslexia, but if someone had most or all of these, like 4, 5, 6, I would probably be leaning towards that. And that's when I would start to seek intervention and assessment, just to support that child, because there would obviously be something going on. Also, there is a chance that it can link to another learning difficulty. But if you've got that on your radar, then you can start the process in supporting that child. And this again is in the ebook. So this is just a really simple intervention sheet that I would use. So what I'd observed would be here. I would attach to this the photocopy of work or my notes of what I think. Obviously, teachers, you have loads to do anyway, so I would make it really brief, but just keep that record for that child. The intervention that you started and the frequency, if you were to do something in class or if you refer it to the Senko, just so you've got that and you've got that covered for yourselves and for that child. So, parent meeting. We'd hold a meeting with the parents. I'd explain the reason behind your thoughts. So, notes, examples of work. I would do it, obviously, not in a very sort of forceful way. If a parent is completely unaware and they're getting told their child, they suspect dyslexia for their child, it is upsetting. It's upsetting to hear that. Anything about your child. I was a Senko, and when we got told very, very early that my son was autistic, he was about 10, 11 months old, that nursery had noticed symptoms. And even for me, that was really upsetting. And it is just to even sit and process. So some parents can be upset by it, even if they sort of think it themselves. So I would do it in quite a supportive manner, speak about what you're going to do within school, speak out your assessment process, which I'll go on to speak about, and what you decide to do. I'd offer the book. This is the picture of the Nessie one. It's free on the website. There's a link to that as well. Or a fact sheet about dyslexia, or signpost them to the relevant websites like the British Dyslexia Association. The NHS website does have some quite useful information. There's also the Department of Education have done a report with recommendations in place. Whatever you feel is necessary for that parent, what would suit them, because you know them best. And then I'd speak to them about support and early support that school would be putting into place. So assessment, it's important to start support as soon as possible, but also to have the child assessed. The reason for assessment is because they can discover the type of dyslexia they feel it is. So if it's to do with auditory processing, if it is to do with sort of memory processing, if it's sight, and then you can tailor the intervention for that. So the first bit is screening in school. Do you have screening in school, and do you have a dyslexia specialist? So the Department of Education and the British Dyslexia Association have recommended that every school has a dyslexia specialist. Whether this happens, whether it's going on, we know the state of the school system at the moment. I'm thinking it's pretty unlikely in every single school. However, if you're a part of a trust, academy trust, or a cluster of schools, or you have even schools close by which have close relationships with, and they have resources for dyslexia screening, speak to them, see if you can use theirs. If you do not have them, see if your SENCO, or if you are the SENCO, have you had additional training in dyslexia? GL assessment is a really good program to use. This, I believe, used to be the Lucid Rapid one, which we also used to use. And this would assess the child like a computer game. So they just thought they were playing a game, and it would do 3 main areas, and then it would give you the results, and it would show the areas that you need support with. So if it was auditory, you'd think, right, they struggle with sounds. We need to make sure we're doing visual instructions, written instructions, and that they're not in a noisy environment when they're doing sort of written work, because the sounds can distract them easily. Private practitioners, so you can refer to the GP, but GP waiting lists, and it will take a very long time, as with everything at the moment. There's a number of private practices, there's more and more popping up. It is a premium to go to private practice. Can be around £350, some are slightly less, some are slightly more, but it could be worth it to have a full assessment if that parent wants to go down that avenue. So some universities offer appointments at their eye clinics. I live in Leeds, as you can probably tell from the accent, but Bradford University actually offer in their clinics, you pay £25 and you go, and they do it for children and school children, and they look at all eye-related issues and dyslexia. So they look at like colour screening. So if a child needs different coloured paper or overlays, they look at eye tracking. I've had a child who's gone and they said they struggle to track the first and last letter of every word, so don't get them to copy things down because they can't do it. So, and that is £25. So if there's something in the area of where you are, where your children are, I would potentially look at that for the universities if there's anything like that, because it is a really, really good service that Bradford University offer. There is a website, it's the Bradford, they've changed it to the Yorkshire Rose Dyslexia Association, but that talks about that. So that's a website that's worth looking at if you're considering recommending that avenue to parents. So I'm going to go on to the practical support if you feel you have a child who is dyslexic in class. So first things first, you need to look at your environment for learning. So are we putting any barriers in their way? Can we make things easier just as soon as they step into the classroom? If you have a child with dyslexia, the chances are, and they struggle with reading and writing, they will either have really low confidence with reading and writing, well, most likely will do, and they will usually do not much work. They'll try and distract themselves from doing work, or as soon as you start trying to do some written work, that's when their behaviour may escalate slightly. This is not all children, but that just, in my experience, that can be what happens. I've had a child before who'd not really done much for a couple of years before they got with me, and I couldn't understand why they were not writing in English. They were literally writing a sentence. And then when we did a bit of investigation, they were quite severely dyslexic. When we started the interventions with them, the difference in that child was incredible. Their ideas and the vocabulary was already there, but they just would not write it down. And so we had a really good success story with them. But by the end of the year, they were writing a page and a half in English independently when they'd previously been writing a sentence, if that. So it was identifying those things that we could do. So equipment, which we'll discuss a bit further, but make sure you've got it available. The number of times that I've been in different schools and classes, and there's a child who has equipment that they've needed, not just for dyslexia, for SEND needs on their plan, and you ask them where it is, and it's like, oh, we don't have it. And it's setting them up to fail straight away. So if they need coloured overlays, use that. If they need coloured paper, make sure the work is done on that paper. Off-white paper is brilliant because white can reflect the light, which makes it harder if you're struggling to read words anyway to see. This is why these slides are in an off-white colour as well, because of the glare. It can make people who have eyesight conditions struggle to read it. But also, if they have had a colour recommendation, such as pink, yellow, green paper, just print the worksheets on that. You can even get textbooks in those colours. We used to order those in. Speak to your Senko. If you are the Senko and you know children need those, you can order them quite cheaply now. A few years ago, it was quite expensive, but you can order overlays from Amazon for like £8 now. So it's not a big expense like it used to be. But just make sure you've got that equipment for them. So in your lessons, think about the backgrounds to your slides and worksheets. So we've already spoken about pastel off-white colours. Overall in class, I'm not saying have everything in a off-white tone for all your slides, but if you're having really bright backgrounds for children who do struggle, they will struggle to read that. So consider that with paper choices and whiteboards, but you can get coloured mini whiteboards, which are obviously not whiteboards, but pastel coloured ones. They are rarer to find. I don't see them that often, but it is something to consider. And the easiest thing to do is to get a coloured overlay if that child needs it. So keep background slides clear. So I'm not saying don't put anything decorative. I'm not saying don't have fun with your slides and make them interactive and exciting to look at. But if we look at the difference here, this one I've just taken offline, and I know we can see that it says classroom management on it. And I'm not saying people have these in all the classrooms all the time, but I have seen when people are showing all the beautiful slides at the beginning of the year, setting up for the classes, like on Instagram and Facebook, because I follow lots of teacher accounts. Some of them I have looked at and thought I would struggle to read that. For that one on the left, I would really struggle just with how colourful it is, how many icons there are, the background to it. That, if for me, it's sensory overload. And for not just dyslexic children, for children who do struggle with sensory needs, I would struggle with that. This one's one of ours from our autumn wellbeing collection. Now, this is probably not the most interesting one to show you. They're not all this colour in the background. They range in colours, but we have wellbeing slides on the website if anyone wants to have a look at them. But there are some decorative elements to it. There are a few things. There is even a bit of white on it, but that is a lot easier on the eyes to see than the one on the left. So when you're doing your slides for your children, just be mindful if you've got a really cluttered slide or very bright. We're going to talk about fonts as well, of what you think a child who would struggle to read and write, if they can see that, if it's clear to them, if they can understand it. So fonts, think of how fonts and spacing are used. So there is actually a font called Dyslexia. So it's like dyslexia, but it's got an E at the end, which was made with the view for using it for dyslexic people, for it being easy to read. Now, there's been some research recently which has shown that it isn't actually preferable. What actually makes things easy to read is the spacing between the words and letters. So I've done this at the end here. So for someone who struggles to read from a slide or read a worksheet, just having that additional spacing the words out more, can make it slightly easier to read. So that's something to consider. I would say have a clear, easy to read font. This isn't on the slide, but in the ebook, we talk about the letter A. So that letter A is how we would expect to write it. But if you look at a lot of fonts, they use the letter A like the Times New Roman with the mark on the top. And that is something to consider as well, especially with younger children. Cursive handwriting. Now, cursive handwriting is a bit of a bugbear of mine. I feel there's many benefits to it. So it's been shown that it works for a lot of children, and it's shown that it can actually help dyslexic children as they form less mirror letters. It can help with the flow and the movements and sort of embed the letter shape with the movements that they are using. However, I've done the Ruth Miskin training for Fresh Start, which I'm going to speak about because I think that's an amazing intervention if it's done correctly. And if a child has not picked up cursive handwriting, sort of by year, I'd say at the end of year two, year three, I would just stop because I think sometimes it can be more of a hindrance. So if you've got a child who's dyslexic, who is then worried about their handwriting because they can't do cursive handwriting, just stop doing it. And the Ruth Miskin training speaks about this as well. Handwriting stress, I think, causes more stress than some people think it does. I've had a mum come to me before, and her son was so upset when he came into my class in year four, and she was like, he gets so upset about his handwriting, he can't do cursive handwriting. I just said, it's fine, he doesn't have to. And she was like, what? I've had this argument with them all last year. And I was like, no, it's absolutely fine, he doesn't have to. So if you are a school that has cursive handwriting, I do get the benefits. But also, if there are children, it's not for everybody. My eldest son really struggled with it. He started high school, don't have to do it in high school, and his handwriting is beautiful now. So that's just a little point on that. But for dyslexic children, to start with, that can really help because it's the letter formation for them. Symbols. So the mind processes symbols faster than words. So using symbols throughout the classroom can help children with dyslexia find things quicker and other children in the classroom as well. When preparing instructions for dyslexic children, look at chunking them into 2 and 3 steps. As we've discussed before, it can be hard to process 5, 6-step instructions, even if you have to do like half a page with 2, 3 instructions on, and then another half a page with 2, 3 instructions on. Where possible, include symbols. Now, widget software, if you haven't seen it, is amazing. I think every school should have it. I do nothing with them. I'm not being paid to recommend it. I think it's just incredible. So if you haven't seen it, it creates symbols for you as you type. And you can choose the symbol here that you want to use for certain words. So for like you there, you can choose which one you want to use. And I just think it's incredible. You can use this for instructions, word banks, writing aids, and just around the classroom, like where your books are kept, for different things like listening. If you've got a behaviour chart or a sound chart in your room, using the symbols on it can make a difference to children with dyslexia and children anyway, to be able to see those different symbols. I know there is a free trial for it, but then you would have to pay for it. They do school licenses, but it's an absolutely incredible tool to use, and I would really, really recommend using it. Word banks, that's another thing. So if you're doing English, get to sort of age 8, 9, year 3, 4, 5, you tend to be using word banks to include words within your work. Giving a dyslexic child a word bank, it's just giving them something that 9 times out of 10 they can't understand. If that child can, but they do need to learn different words, which I do understand, it's part of teaching, use widget software for that. If they have a word bank with symbols on, they're more likely to associate that symbol with the word, so then they can use that within their writing. So spellings, look at spelling programs that specifically can be used with dyslexia. So WordShark is an interactive spelling program, and that's really, really good. It's on the computer. Every child I've worked with loves it because it's just games, but it does have some benefit to it. Colour coding, I know that the colourful semantics is a new, relatively new system which has come into place, which could work, but also colour coding different sounds and syllables has worked in the past. Let go of the little things. So if a child has dyslexia, do they need to be writing the date and the LO in every day? Put it on a sticker for them and stick it into the books. Spelling tests. I understand you need to do spelling tests. I understand there's spelling lists which need to be learned. Do you teach them where they get tested on it every week? Or do you teach them in a way where you're doing it whole class and you may do a test every half term? We used to do it where we would do whole class spelling. We'd do 2 every morning. We use the Ruth Miskin again, the spelling fingers. If you've done read writing, you'll know what I mean, and Fresh Start. We do that with 2 words every morning, do that for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we would have a test, because I do understand you still have to have tests. You have to have a spelling test in your SATs. So they do still need to be used to having a spelling test, but just relax the pressure on spellings. As soon as I'd said to a child previously, their ideas were brilliant, hated writing, would worry about their spellings, I said, forget about your spellings, I don't care how you spell today, get your ideas down on paper. As soon as I said that to them, the difference, really little things in how they then went about their work, they were like, oh, Miss doesn't care about my spellings today. Yeah, I'll get my work down. And then the content was there. And then we went through afterwards and edited it and went through spellings. Obviously, we didn't go through every single spelling, as there would have been a lot of spelling mistakes, but to get the key words and go through spelling with them, it can make a difference to their confidence and how they view then doing English. So interventions, toe by toe, I think a lot of people will have seen this before. So that image is not the best. It's from Google. However, if you do Google it, lots of examples have come up. So it's a very thorough intervention. It's about £23, I think I saw the cheapest one for. And you can sort of see here, I'm sorry for the image quality, it has different words, and then you mark it off day by day as you go through it. And every time you do it, and it has different programs. It's very, very thorough. You go through different sounds, phonemes, syllables. It's also been used for people who have English as an additional language, so EAL students, to help them learn English. The only issue is it's recommended you do it every day. On the website, it says 60 minutes a day, which I feel would be unrealistic, but you would need to sit and do a decent session every day to have the benefit from it. And with timing constraints, it would be difficult. If you have a TA that can go do that with a dyslexic child every day, it's a brilliant program. However, I know that not many people do now. So, but it is a very good intervention. It's more old school is what I'd call it, because it is something that was used years ago. I've known it in schools for a very long time, but it is still going, and it is still a very, very good program. Read Write Inc and Fresh Start, I absolutely love. If you do the Read Write Inc phonics program, you'll have your own feelings about it. Some people don't like it. I love it. I've done the Fresh Start program, which is from year 5 till year 7, children who are behind in their reading. But because you talk about phonics, relearning phonics every session, you do a lot of spelling work, grammar work, reading and writing, it can really boost the confidence of the children who are behind. Another child I've done this with, they would struggle to write in class. And by the time it got to the end of year 6, they'd started this program at the start of year 6, and we ran it as an intervention. They had it 3 times a week for about 30, 40 minutes. So that's a downside. Someone needs to be trained in it and it needs to be taught. But once it's taught properly, the difference in that child, all the children who did it had accelerated progress. Not all the children were dyslexic. Some of them were behind with the reading. We had a child with ADHD who did it, and it did help him focus more, because it was in smaller chunks, so he knew he could move from task to task. But the child that I'm thinking of who was dyslexic, they were writing more, but their spelling came on so much. And sometimes, because of the method of spelling that is taught, they would spell a word and it would be spelled incorrectly, but it would be sounded out correctly. And it just gave them so much confidence. It was just such a lovely thing to see. And they have so much support. If you ever need support for different children with additional needs. And they've even got support for non-verbal children in how to teach them phonics and different ways and strategies too. It's absolutely brilliant. If you have the program, or you're considering doing the program, I would definitely look at it. If you've got older learners, behind in reading, dyslexic children, look at it for them as well, because it's just the dyslexic children I worked with for Fresh Start, and I think there's about 4 or 5 of them. It was absolutely brilliant. And then the last one, Nessie, I also love. So if anyone who doesn't know what Nessie is, it is a computer program, and they have numbers. They've got dyslexic program. They've got a spelling and reading program, and you can set the targets and the areas that that child needs to work on, and they log on to it and do it independently, and you can see what they've done, how well they've done, what they're struggling with, so you can really teach those bits. And it was brilliant. I used to do it registration every morning. I had 2 children in my class in the last class I taught in, and they would come in first thing, log on, do Nessie for 10, 15 minutes. 10 minutes a day in registration I've put on here. It's 50 minutes a week of dyslexia intervention, and it does make a difference. And they enjoy doing it because it's fun. And they think, oh, I'm coming in and getting to play a computer game on a morning. So for them, they enjoy doing it. So different tools. I'm aware I've spoke quite a bit. This is the last sort of bits we're getting to, and then I'm going to open up for question and answers. So overlays and cited. So I've spoken about overlays before. Coloured overlays, coloured paper can increase reading speed by 25%, up to 25%, it has been shown. Like I said, you can get them on Amazon now. It is really worth using with a child that you feel may need that. You can really tell by looking at a child and using different overlays on a piece of paper, on a reading book, if the colours that they go towards, so like the reds, blues, pinks, greens, yellows, reds and oranges, and you can tell that the ones that they find easy to read with, because they sort of tend to choose the same sort of colours. And it's really easy to just sort of eliminate colours and go through and try them with different ones. And it can make a difference. It can just make reading easier, which if they can increase their reading speed, as we know, the work becomes easier. Software, we used to do an assessment piece for writing with the Big Write. Let them use a computer for it. They do have to have obviously still do writing and spelling and get used to writing and building that stamina, but let them use a computer for the final piece. It helps them not have the dread of thinking, oh, I've done all this English work and now I've got to write it all up again. If they're on the computer, it can build confidence with it. Now, talking pens. So these are scanners. These are some cheap alternatives I found on Amazon. If you're going to embed it within school, I would probably choose, there's lots of companies, but they are about £350 a pen, and that has the whole system. But if you're just wanting to try it out, there's some cheaper ones that you can get on Amazon. There's just a couple of examples here. And that will scan the text and read it out to the child. Reading partners. In class, pair the child up with a reading partner. I'm not saying do it for every single bit of work and they read absolutely everything out to this child, but if it is a reading task, sit them next to a confident reader who won't get distracted and it won't impact their work, that they know that they can turn around to them and say, I'm really struggling with this bit, can you help me? And they'll be like, yes, I'll read that out to you. Obviously, you have to choose your children. You know your children best and who would be open to doing that and who would be good at doing that. There's a dictionary called the Dictionary of Perfect Spelling for anybody who hasn't seen it. And it has words spell how they sound. So if a child was trying to spell a word, they could open the dictionary and they could go to it with how it sounds. And it goes to the correct spelling of the word next to it. And that's just a brilliant tool. Large print books, obviously having larger text and larger words makes it easy to read. You can't get them in all books, but you can also get large print textbooks, and even for SATs, you can get large print SATs papers. We have got those before. Story cubes, I mean, that's a really cheap image from Temu of all places. I think they're about £2.50. But if you're doing some creative writing with a child and they're dyslexic and they are struggling, or any child with any needs, but they are struggling to think of a way to start a story, or you've given them the story starter and they don't know where to go. Story cubes, roll a couple of cubes, do the next steps for their story, and it can just take that pressure off children who need that support. Then Katie's classroom. So again, I don't know Katie. I've just come across this, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. So her son is dyslexic and he has struggled throughout school. So she started recording lessons for him. And this is a bank. Now, I know she's not done as much as the whole curriculum yet, but she has her main focuses for primary and then year 7 and 8. And it's lessons from different areas of the curriculum, but in audio. For children who are struggling to read, this could be a brilliant tool to use. I think it's £5 a month. It's a good one to show parents as well. So if they want to do some additional work at home, but you know that that child struggles to read and write in class, so they're not going to read and write at home, this is a really good website to direct them to where they can just listen to some additional information. Audiobooks as well within class is a great idea for children who do struggle with reading and for whole class reading as well. Obviously, reading out to your children is lovely, but also audiobooks can work really, really well. So I've just spoke through that. I have got 20 minutes left, which is what I wanted. So this is on the website. It's the ebook Supporting Dyslexia. If anyone's interested, I will send the link out afterwards anyway. There is a small charge for it. It's only a few pounds. I would love to give everything away for free, but I can't. But I do try to do as many free things as I can. There is a teacher group which has lots of freebies in for supporting children within the classroom with mental health, emotional well-being, and I'm building those resources all the time, so I can add that onto the email as well. Then there's a teacher mental health support group, which I will also include in the recording of this. So thank you all for listening. I have spoke on and just spoke at you. If anybody has any questions, please ask me now and I can answer some. Or if you want to, oh, sorry, someone just got out. If you want to message me privately and ask any questions, then email me. I have got the email for that. Sorry, I have sent the email address out for that, and I will. So I'm just checking now, and I will answer those for you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. We've just got a quick question.
Yeah.
We a child, we're in year 4, and we've got a child who is at reading age of about a 4, 5-year-old.
Okay.
He went for a trial at a dyslexic school, and they said that they couldn't meet his needs because he was too defiant.
Okay.
But we've got him at the moment and he's doing really well. Like he's on year 1 spellings and he's liking spelling shed and things like that to do his spelling test. And he did get full marks today. So that must be
Oh,
working for him. But we just wanted to know like any tips that you've got, because when I'm putting things on the board or we're doing an instruction, like straight away, like his barriers up, he won't even like engage with writing on the board or anything like that because he says the letters are moving. I don't know what it says. He'll openly say to all the children, like, I can't read, can't write. Um, yeah,
so
he's in a read writing group of a morning for phonics,
how does he
but
get on with that?
he doesn't like it at all. No. He doesn't enjoy it. He just thinks it's so hard. He puts a wall up straight away. I mean, he's been doing that since obviously year 1 now, and he does
Yeah.
find it hard. Um, yeah, what's your advice with that?
Does he have any additional needs on top of dyslexia?
Yeah, so he's got ADHD and autism.
Does he have an EHCP? As in, does he have a one-to-one support with that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Is there a way that what does the TA do if there is a TA with him once the spelling lessons start? Do they do targeted work with him, or does he just sit and join in class?
So we have I have my class, and then he's taken out with a group of three to do the phonics just for his spellings, which he's doing. Um, but it's more. I don't think the spellings is that bad with the spelling shed at the minute. It's more the reading the books. He's just started pink books in the read writing because we've gone to that, and he's saying straight away that they're too tricky for him. But I don't necessarily think they are too tricky for him. I think he's just got such a wall up that he thinks he can't do it.
Yeah. Um, what I will email you as well some resources, but I think from the sounds of it, if he's autistic as well and has ADHD, there could be some avoidance there.
Yeah.
Definitely, it sounds like with that. Um, is there a way, and I will email you this as well, that you can look at different choices you can do for reading? So thinking from the top of my head, so is it always a book that he has to read? Is there a way he can do reading in a way that he doesn't think he's reading as much? Has he got any special interests? Like I've been working with a boy, tutoring a boy recently, who his special interests are dinosaurs. He hates reading. He's completely avoids doing anything. He won't read. He won't write. He just says no. He won't. We've done a bit of writing, but he thinks if we start reading, he just goes, I'm not reading, I'm not reading. We started looking at dinosaurs because he loves dinosaurs. And then I just started asking questions, and it would be tailored to him. But at the moment, if he's doing nothing within reading anyway, this would be something I would probably try. So he's doing something. So we would look at dinosaurs, and then I would be like, "Oh, what's this?" and have some words about dinosaurs out for him. So I would be like, "Oh, what's this that the dinosaur would be in? Would it be this one or this one?" Sort of saying, "Would he live on a cave or a beach?" And he'd be like, "Oh, it'd be the cave," and I'd be like, "So I'd know that he was reading those words there." And it's sort of tailoring it around him, which I understand it's more work. But for him, if he's not reading anyway, to tailor something to him, then it makes sense because then at least he's doing something rather than doing nothing. And also, I mean, I will email you this as well, but I found with autistic children, and definitely my son as well. I mean, my son's young, but he already does it. It's if he thinks he hasn't got a choice in what he's doing, he has immediately defiance against it. If there's a way that you could sort of bring a choice into it, sort of like, do you want to read this book, or do you want to read this magazine about whatever his interest may be, or do you want to read this? Could be like a fact file about something that they're interested in. Giving that choice can sometimes help them think, oh, actually, I'm choosing what to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I mean, I think it's like superheroes and stuff, so we could definitely have a look at something like that he would enjoy.
Yeah. With superheroes, there is so many resources on superheroes. I'll send you some links over to you with your email address.
Okay,
But yeah, if it's
if
something
you,
superhero themed,
sorry, can I give you my email? Because I think our finance lady did it, so I think it's her email. Can I give you my
yes,
email?
of course. Do
Yeah.
you want to just put it in? Have you got my email address from the webinar?
Um,
In fact, I'll put it in the chat now. And if
okay.
you want to just email me over and I will send you some links over.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
No worries. But I have found with autism that the defiance can definitely play a massive part in it, especially if it's something that they've struggled with previously and they just think, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do it. That is
Yeah.
definitely. But I will send you some resources over.
Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah, it's that block that he's got up that he thinks he can't do it. No matter how hard he tries, he isn't learning anymore because I don't think he's really. I taught him in year one as well, and he's not really come on that
Yeah,
much from now he's in year four. So, yes, thank you very much.
you're welcome. So, is anybody else have any questions? I will send a recording of this out. I know you've asked in the question in the chat, So I'll send that out afterwards. I will send out links to the teacher group that I've got and anything else. Um, but it doesn't look like anybody else does. So if nobody else has, I will end the webinars. I'm sure you've all got lots to do. And thank you so much. I hope that was helpful. And I will send that information out. It will be this evening. And hopefully I will speak to some of you soon. Thank you.